That's the struggle because they need the critical thinking. I mean, even my trainer was like, "Oh, I have a new gym opening up. I used AI to create the press release and the media plan." And I'm looking at it and I'm like, "They missed the fact that you were from Boston Sports Club and a part of the wave that got laid off. Like Massachusetts has a huge lawsuit. Maura Healey was involved in it. Like, and that was just being, or that was a big news story just last week. So on the coattails of that, you took something that was so negative and made it positive for the community. That's the story, not some random guy with my last name opened a gym. So it was funny because AI completely missed that. But unless you are aware, you're following the news, you know what reporters want, you could easily just say, well, I got this from AI. Let me just blindly pitch, BBJ or Boston Globe.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Comms Confidential, the podcast where we talk to the communicators who are changing the way we think about how we tell stories every day. Today, I've got Monique Kelley, founder and CEO of Monique Kelley Consulting and an author. But before we jump into that conversation, just a reminder, subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, and drop us a review if you really like what you're hearing. Monique, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on, Joe.
So you started on the agency side, spent roughly 20 years there, give or take. And then you walked away, as you described it when we were having this conversation. You walked away from the corporate ladder and became a full-time professor. You launched your own consultancy. What was the catalyst for that move? Like, help me understand why you said, you know what, I'm done with this and I want to do academia and kind of the other thing.
Yeah, so none of my moves are planned. I loved agency life. I was at Weber with you at the same time, which we were like, oh my God, how funny. So small world. But I was there for 10 years of, the agency life. And I actually thought I was pitching to CADA, where I ended up working in house. But I wasn't pitching. I was going because they wanted to solicit me. And so the whole time before I even went there, I was like, oh, we're going to get to work on product comms, which is what I did and really built at the Boston office. And then when I'm hearing this, I'm thinking, oh, so now I have to go back and explain, well, and it's funny because nobody ever asked. Nobody was like, how was the meeting? What are the next steps? It was just like, all right, whatever, like you'll let us know what to do. And so I left and started in R&D comms and then went to commercial comms, supporting the COO and two business units. So I had a pretty vast remit, internal, external. Loved that work as well. And I started adjuncting during COVID. So it was great because I got to dress up.
Teaching.
Adjunct teaching, yeah. So it was just a, Tuesday night gig, get me out during COVID. So I got to actually dress up. And even though we had to wear a mask, it was nice to just see people, even if they were students. I'm like, I just need conversation outside of Zoom. And then that was for a few years. And when I was asked to go full time, I thought it was the right timing for me to start something very new that I might not get the opportunity to do again. And that's really where the consulting was born, because our dean, who's the scientist, or was the editor in chief of Scientific America, she was very big on making sure we were still plugged in and didn't feel, as a professor of the practice, we were choosing academia over industry. And we still were able to do both.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've probably told this story to others, but one of the reasons I got into the industry was my PR professor at Villanova, going back 20 something years ago. He was a practitioner and he brought those insights to the classroom. So like the case studies that we learned were not just, okay, well, here's the book, here's how you learned it, whatever, but he actually like provided real world insights. And that was what kind of pulled me in. So love the fact that your dean is doing that or was doing that. It's just more impactful for the students. I'm sure you've seen that.
And it's fun for me because I'm healthcare all the time. So to be able to ask, friends or my network from, Chick-fil-A, and Spotify to come in and serve as clients so my students can get a feel of what a mock new business pitch is like and actually give them ideas for a real idea. That's fun for me. And also, if it's food related, I get free food. So shout out to Ben & Jerry's, Chick-fil-A. I get fed too. So we all win.
Yeah, let's keep on I want to make sure we spend a lot of time talking about the book, but I want to talk about, I've been really like keen on this idea of future generations teaching, the next level of practitioners. A lot of things are going to change with AI and whatnot, but you have a front row seat with this next generation. You are hearing what they love, what they don't love, their concerns, where they are leaning in. What can you tell us about this, the next generation? I don't want to label the generation, but like the next generation and like what we as like those who've been in the industry for a while can do to help them, and also what we need to be on the lookout for.
Yeah, so teaching at BU's, Boston University's College of Communication, I see all kinds of students. We have about 30% international. We have a variety of students that come in specifically for PR, some marketing and journalism, but also want to learn about PR. So I teach undergrad, primarily juniors and seniors. And I would say, in general, to your point, we can't really generalize, but overall, what I've been seeing for these past 6 years are students that are open to learning, but they don't know what they don't know. And so I teach the university's first and only career readiness course for all com. And I teach things like elevator pitches, assuming that they know it because they're pitching their films, they're pitching, their editors if they, want to be in journalism. And they look at me and are like, we've never done this before. We've never actually pitched ourselves. And besides resumes and cover letters, they know nothing else. Like, what do we do on LinkedIn? We're actually supposed to be on there outside of just needing a job. And so it's really starting from scratch with them. But I see when I explain it, and I have others from our career services come in as well, they are open to learning and adapting. But I think it's that hunger of recognizing that I don't know it, but I'm at a school where I can learn it. So let me proactively figure it out. That's what I'm not seeing as much as perhaps our generations, where we had to figure it out. There was no LinkedIn. There was no anything. It was like, they laugh at me when I say I put on a suit and walked to different companies, Broder, Schwartz, which was now,
Uh-huh.
now Emerson, like took a bus, like anyone who would talk to me, I was just grateful for, and took the first job that was available to me as well. There was no, I want to go into healthcare. I think I want to do this. It was, I have expensive student loans from BU, and I will take whatever I can get and be thankful.
Yeah, yeah. So they obviously have that hunger to learn, but also that flip of they have a vision for their path.
Right.
They have this idea of where they wanna go. How do you actually, like, break that a little bit? And I don't wanna break it in a negative way, but, like, show them, like, "Hey, just because you have a process in mind does not mean that it's the process that's gonna play out."
Right. Yeah, I'm very honest with them even about my journey. I'm like, look, I wanted to stay in Boston. It's a great city, but the job was in New York and I didn't know anyone, but I got a Craigslist roommate. Thankfully, it worked out, and moved to Astoria, Queens with the amazing Greek food that I miss, and made it work. I
Uh,
figured it out. And so I try to explain to them that you might want to work at Nike, but if they're not hiring, you shouldn't just wait around and not work. Or, a lot of them just figure I'll go to grad school or I'll do this, mainly because they feel, well, by doing that, I'll wait for a job, versus no, 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 no. You're actually going to get a richer experience and maybe have an employer pay for it if you need a grad degree by getting work experience. So your goal is not to be a perpetual student, it's to actually start working.
got it. And I'm sure they all ask you, "Well, what's Craigslist?"
Or just anything. I was like Bacon's books, fax machines, AOL Instant dial up. I said something about a song the other day, and Dougie Fresh. Someone said 6 minutes. I was
Uh-huh.
like, 6 minutes, Dougie Fresh, you're on. And everyone was like, the hell is she talking? I didn't think it was that long ago, but apparently it was.
So how can, the folks who've been in the industry for 15, 10, 15, 20 years actually help this cohort of students coming into the industry and like, they're going to come in, they're going to be for the most part AI native. They're not going to be able to get necessarily the experience of like building a media list because it's just a totally different task now and you don't learn the reporters the way you did. What advice do you have for me?
Yeah, well, the World Economic Forum now is estimating about 40% of tasks within jobs will be augmented with AI by 2030. And when we look at entry level jobs, it's about 50%, managerial 10 to 20%. So, what I encourage folks to do is recognizing that, look, to your point, entry level is going to look different. And thank God, because for us, it was Bacon's books and fax machines and not even a 24-hour news cycle, no influencers, no social. So things have really, to me, that was more drastic than AI. AI we've been using, maybe we didn't even know we've been using for quite a while. But now with generative AI and the big conversations around it, the World Economic Forum is saying we need, as employers and as employees, to just focus on upskilling. And so, how do we make sure that we know how to use AI? How do we know that we still have a critical eye towards looking at it and not just posting everything that we see because it's generating for us? So, that, but I also think for our profession to just be patient with this next generation, because I hear it all the time from clients, from others, like, oh my God, they don't know what they're doing, or this or this. But I'm always thinking, well, look, I'm sure somebody said that about us too. And so how can we all learn from each other? I love that in general, the research shows Gen Z is very social impact focused. 65% want something with purpose. That right there is huge. Like I said, I just needed a job. I could care less where. For this generation, I do appreciate that they want to be a little bit more conscious of what they're contributing. And that could be a good thing, especially for our companies and brands where we can no longer just, hide and get by or check boxes in terms of how we show up.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. I mean, I think back to when, oh, this must have been like 3 years into my career, 3 or 4 years. I mean, my boss pulled me aside and said, like, you need to go and like hone your writing. Like, I am sure my writing was terrible at the time, but, but the time was spent to actually sit down, assess a weakness, figure out the path forward. And, to your point, like, these students are, I mean, any entry level is coming in with just internship experience. So like we do need to take the time and be patient with them and help them understand. I think that there's going to be probably, and I'm curious your take on this, there's probably going to be more like bringing them into strategy because the administrative work, the tedious work where you and I actually learned the business and learned how to like think through questions a reporter might ask is probably going to be automated in some fashion,
Mhm.
or they're going to have to like learn it so that they can critique the machines in that way.
That's the struggle because they need the critical thinking. I mean, even my trainer was like, "Oh, I have a new gym opening up. I used AI to create the press release and the media plan." And I'm looking at it and I'm like, "They missed the fact that you were from Boston Sports Club and a part of the wave that got laid off. Like Massachusetts has a huge
Huh.
lawsuit. Maura Healey was involved in it. Like, and that was just being, or that was a big news story just last week. So on the coattails of that, you took
Yeah.
something that was so negative and made it positive for the community. That's the story, not some random guy with my last name opened a gym. So it was funny because AI completely missed that. But unless you are aware, you're following the news, you know what reporters want, you could easily just say, well, I got this from AI. Let me just blindly
Uh-huh.
pitch, BBJ or Boston Globe.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes total sense. Let's jump into the book. Let's talk about your book. So the title of the book is Redefining Networking, How to Lead with Your Unique Value. What was the inspiration here?
God, I mean, I never recognized how much networking was really integral to my own career, let alone others. I would say I've only gotten one job, my second job at MSNL Healthcare Group through a website. Everything else was, even my first job was through connections, coworkers, classmates, etc. And so when I was at Takeda looking to move on, and first of all, the fact that I even was offered the full-time job, I'm very open. I'm like, look, I got a 3.2 GPA at BU. I was failing pre-med bio, engineering physics. I wanted to be a nutritionist before I found PR and was like, all right, now I can actually do something. I don't have a master's. I'm somebody who doesn't feel like we need one in our industry. I'm a very big believer in work experience. And so I didn't think that there was really a place for me. But as I started to talk in the interviews, and by the way, it's a 10-month interview process, 10 letters of recommendation. Like it's a whole to do to, so, BU and some of these universities really, they go and interrogate, but for me, I just appreciated that they saw, well, you can bring the real world experience because you never left the real world and
Uh-huh.
you understand, what they're going to need to do well in the industry. And there is a place for people like you. And so that kind of started, my mind a little bit of, this is interesting, this whole networking thing and getting that job specifically through contributing in my network. And then for consulting, knock on wood, it's been 3.5 years straight, no lull, and only working through my network. So I don't have
Great.
a website. I don't have a cute logo. People, even my first client, they were like invoice template. I'm like, I don't even know what to do. So, I was a little on a learning curve with the business part of it because I just knew to contribute value to a client. And by the way, that client was my friend or former coworker from Weber. So as these things started to play out, my friend Adam Ritchie wrote a book, Invention and PR, and he wanted me to endorse it. And so in normal bartering Persian style, I was like, well, I'm going to have to talk to your editor because I'm onto something with this networking thing and I just don't know what to do about it. So I endorsed his book. He got me a conversation with his editor and she loved it mainly because
Great.
she said, I hate networking. So if you can turn people like me, who's introverted, who hates networking, if you can turn us on, then, you get the contract. So, sold that in to her editors, and then I was able to write the book.
No, that's amazing. But what so it was your own journey that kind of inspired you to get to that like to understand that networking is hard. Like, and I'm going to be honest, I am one of these people where I could walk into a happy hour and like no, like not know anyone there or not think I knew anyone there, and I'm
Right.
a wallflower. Like I am
Yeah.
just like, okay, I'll assess the situation, see if
Hmm.
I can like whatever. If I know at least one person there, then that opens the door for me.
Right.
I've said it before. I think we were talking about it beforehand. Like, I actually look at this podcast as a way of networking
Hmm.
because I'm, like I just said, I'm much better virtually.
Right.
But, you get to meet people of different types, like by the time this airs, I'll have spoken with the media relations person at Savannah Bananas, Sam Bauman. I got to meet Susan Oguche, who's the former chief communications officer of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Those are people I would not have met otherwise.
Right.
So like the idea of it's not just about, okay, go to an association dinner, happy hour, be part of that to like meet people is really kind of a way the doors open in the 21st.
Yeah, and post COVID, I mean, I used to be huge extrovert. I would say now I'm ambivert. I'm a little in the middle, especially because, to your point, I do go to these networking events and I look and I'm like, what is the point of this? Maybe I'm just getting a little too old. I'm like, I really got to, oh, what do you do? Where are you from? And oh,
Uh-huh.
this and that. And it becomes like a sizing up game. And that is just not my thing. And so I always tease. I'm like, I now make it a game. Like, how many times can I go into a room? Nobody really talks to me. Then we go around and do the intros, and all of a sudden I'm somebody who's like, oh, she probably knows someone to get me a job at, one of my clients or a BU, or I want to guest speak for her. So I usually get all of these orders of like, hey, can you do this for me? But we don't have a relationship. I don't know this person. They don't know me. So that was really for me the genesis of the book of like, no, we've got to like everything else in life, and especially with AI and tech, is all about quick and fast and make it easy. And I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying, no, you've got to invest the time, just like the gym or eating healthy or financially. Invest a little bit and be patient, and also see not so much what others can do for you, but what are you contributing to really earn your keep, which is why it's called redefining. That's my definition. Like, I hate the word networking, just has a bad connotation. But if we can say we're showing up for people or we're earning our keep with people, I think most people will understand and appreciate that concept.
You hit on something here. You're an extrovert turned ambivert. I think that was the term you used. I'm an introvert. And in the book, you actually highlight that some of the best networkers are introverts. I
Yes.
don't understand. Like, talk me through that because that is definitely not what I would expect being one.
Yeah, well, I'm jealous. Most of my friends, maybe because I'm such a loud presence, are introverts, including my husband. And, they'll be the first to say, like, I'm just not into it. And then I'll remind them, well, are you not into the big events, but you're into one on ones? And I do have a lot, even later in 2 hours, I'm going to have lunch with a former Weber and Takeda coworker of mine who just had a baby. And that feels right to meet one on one with somebody where you're listening, you're just having a conversation, you're not working a room. And in fact, studies say that the introverts really have a leg up in that. And so that's the kind of networking we're talking about here, is building a relationship and actually getting to know someone, not just getting a whole bunch of, LinkedIn QR codes for people you probably won't even follow up with.
Yeah. Okay. I that I can totally relate to because I'm one on one or one on two way more comfortable than
Yes.
walk into a room and have to like navigate the bar and navigate this
I was
and
going to say, usually that's what I go straight for the bar, and everyone else is getting wine. And I'm like, can I get a mezcal or, gin? And also the name tags. My name is Monique. Somehow when people see it, hi, Monica, or I get a lot of
oh
Nicole. Hi, Nicole. Nicole's a beautiful name. It's just not mine. So that again just adds to the, I think, visceral reaction of like, I don't belong here. And there's
uh,
got to be more than just going to these big events.
yeah, yeah. You hit on something though, the QR code type of transactional discussion and the fact that networking has a bad rap. It's a lot of I need something, let me go and reach out.
Right.
And I've had colleagues and friends who have done that with people that they don't talk to them for 15, 20 years and it either lands on deaf ears or someone's willing to do it superficially. Or in some cases, I mean, this is kind of crazy to me because I believe in like helping everybody and like paying it forward. Some people are just like, we haven't talked and I haven't worked with you. So I don't know if you're actually going to be like worth me vouching for you,
Right.
which is, like I said, kind of like, okay, that's an interesting way to take it when
Right.
you're going to need something.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the things that you think about, or PR people specifically, are supposed to do? Like, we're supposed to be relationship people. How do we navigate that like transaction environment pattern? Why is it so dominant still?
Yeah, well, the research really shows that we're not alone, whether you're in comms or not. 80% of professionals know they need to network, but less than half do it. And the main reason why they don't is because you can guess, oh, we don't have enough time. And so it's not a priority. So even to what you were saying with regards to that happens a lot. We're of an age now, Joe. 20 years out, these colleagues are calling. I mean, same. I want to help everyone, but guess what? I have at least 10 people a day, students, professionals, current network, former network, people I don't know reaching out. And so I also need to prioritize and, being open and honest to say, I'd love to have a conversation with you. I'm in the middle of a semester and 3 clients and writing a book. Maybe we can do it at the end of the month or this or that. And so it's so much easier for someone to help you when it's a in the moment, I need it tomorrow situation, when they know you and when they know, well, this person's always been there for me. So there's a few people who, if they were to text right now, it's like, I'm going all in for. I had one a client of mine from Weber, Daiichi client, she ended up moving to J&J, pulled me in there from a consultant standpoint. Now she's at another company trying to pull me in again. She's always there. I mean, she knows everything. She asked about my family in Iran. She's asking about my father-in-law. Like, so from a personal perspective as well as a professional perspective, she shows up. So she is definitely one of those people who I'm like, you know what? Whatever she needs a kidney, she needs my right hand. I will be there for her. And so that's what we're kind of talking about here. And that is a great example because it's organic. I truly believe she's not doing that to get anything. And I'm not helping her just because I'm thinking, oh, well, then she can keep helping me. It's
Uh-huh.
just we want to show up for each other and we have a genuine love and appreciation for each other. And so I think the more that we can focus it on, God, it's so much easier to do this thing called networking when we don't need anything because to your point, one day we will. And just to make sure that we're always putting good out there in reason, you might not be able to have lunch every day with somebody, but think about at least once a week, especially if you're on LinkedIn, who's got promoted or who's posting something that you can contribute a little comment on. And then sometimes that helps me to remember them like, oh yeah, I haven't done it forever. Let me reach out and just see how they're doing. And there's no timing attached to it. It's like whenever we get the chance, let's schedule something and, hopefully by the end of April or, whenever. So it's easier and it's more comfortable that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, you mentioned LinkedIn, and that's an area that I feel like you can also grow your network pretty
Mhm.
easily, and I don't mean just accept anyone who requests a connection, but, like, when you find those comments, those posts that are, like, really kinda, like, hitting you in a way that, like, let's just take AI, for example. If someone's thinking about, oh, hey, how AI is impacting communications, and then someone comes in with this idea that, well, I think it was the chief communications officer of ZocDoc. Actually, like, she was talking about a monitor like report that she was having AI do. She got 80% of the way there. I think it had like 300 comments. She's willing to take calls with people. All of
Nice.
a sudden, like, you've got that connective tissue
Mhm.
that's not just, hey, I'm Joe. Let's have a conversation. Like, you have that initial like connection to have that conversation and then build off of that.
Yeah. Oh, I can't say enough about LinkedIn. 1.2 billion users are on it. And according to LinkedIn, only 1% post regularly. And regularly is
Wow.
like 3 to 4 times a week. So there's a lot of white space. And I'm the first to say, as comms people, as you know, we are not out there talking about the work. And it's
No.
when we need a job where I see the post, hi, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. Let me know if you have anything. And I always think to myself, what if we turn that around and, we're in the narrative business, we're in the storytelling business. Tell us a story about the work that you're doing or the client you can support or anything, thought leadership, because that's what people are going to remember more so than you need a job. Maybe that day they'll remember, but we're human. We get busy with so many other things.
Yeah, I think we're hitting, and this is probably a totally separate topic, but we're hitting a point, I think, in our industry where we're realizing that we need to step out into the spotlight a little more, not just about the work, but about our opinions on things. Like, at least in the last year, and it's part of the catalyst for this podcast, I've seen more and more PR focused podcasts and actually get notable guests, whether it's reporters or PR people or just industry experts, and actually have real conversations that are insightful and we can learn from versus just the, hey, I placed this story and it was amazing. And then it gets like 800 likes and comments. And That's great that you should be promoting yourself in that way, but that's only going to take you so far.
Exactly.
Um, the book outlines a three-step framework for networking. I want you to walk us through that and help me understand, like, what is that framework? How did you come up with it?
Yeah, so it's exactly what we're talking about. It's being clear on the value you can provide. So, and that's the subtitle of the book. So the first step is, you can't be clear with others if you're not clear with yourself. So really understanding what are those unique skills that you bring to the table. So, we in comms do this well. I'm working with executives all the time, thinking about their content pillars. Where can you speak on different topics and build your thought leadership? It's funny, everyone thinks, oh, they're a thought leader. It's like, well, how are you leading thoughts if you're saying what everybody else is saying? That's not really a leader. You're not saying anything provocative. You are doing exec viz. So let's at least get you some visibility, and then we can go from there to see what your thought is or your unique nugget. And so I think applying that to us is really important. So what are those skill sets that you bring to the table? The second one being the audience. We cannot be all things to everyone. Brands, luxury brands do this very well. And why are we trying? And so, speaking of Nike, Michael, the chief comms officer, who also worked with us at
Yep.
Weber, he had reached out. I was at a Berkeley seeing Rakim get inducted. So this was the fall. And literally I get a text from him, or I think it was a message on LinkedIn. And he says, do you know anybody senior director level for Converse? And because I was in the Rakim era, I'm like, I want to wear my Converses again. Like, let's bring this back to old school. He's like, you're healthcare. Like, no, but your friend, I'm sure you have somebody in Boston who, you might be able to recommend. And I think that's a great example because even he knew this job ain't for you. Like, you are healthcare. You've made that clear that this is what you do. So sure, can I do comms for something else? Maybe. But if you're making your value clear, folks should really think about you as, okay, Monique, yeah, networking or comms or BU. I hate to box people, but it helps other people recognize where to hire you and where opportunities could be if you're clear on what you can contribute to others. And so that's step two, finding your audience. And last but not least, comms people, we do this well, but it's communicating that, being clear. How many times people will say, I'm a consultant. I go to their LinkedIn page and I'm not clear. Well, what do you do? What is your sweet spot? Who are your clients? What is the work? Like, no posts about the work or what they're doing. So it's really hard for people to help you organically in your network if they're not clear on, well, what's your sweet spot and what do you want to do?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's not unlike any other communications program, really. It's just your own communication strategy with once you identify the audience, the people that you want to have in your circle.
Right. And so that came up, I came up with that through just doing this work all the time as a consultant, but also I didn't have a process in the book at first. I was just talking about it. And my husband, speaking of networking, my husband's friend, Jay Altieri, shout out to Jay, he was a learning and development professional at Walmart. And he read the manuscript because he said, well, I think I might be able to help, contribute here a little bit. And he said, well, where's your process? And I said, well, what do you mean? He's like, there's no process here. So you do this well. Comms people might do this well, marketing, sales. But what about people like me or his wife in HR? Like, they're not going to always be thinking about it in this way. And so the
Right.
process was
Right.
generated from an L&D guy. So I always appreciate, again, when you have your network involved in what you're building, they can really make it stronger.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So I'm going to ask a process question. How do you actually identify your unique value? Since that's step
Yes.
one, that's the first thing people got to touch on,
Right.
but they probably don't even know where to start. And right away, I'm like, okay, well, I don't know how to do this. This is going to be
Yeah.
concerning.
Right. So chapter 5, I go through that in the book a little bit, but ultimately it comes down to you've got to know yourself and also follow your energy. So that's even when people ask me, well, how do you know if you're networking correctly? That's a subjective question. And it's going to be, well, do you feel energized afterwards or do you feel drained and burned out? If you're burning out, probably it's something you needs to change. And it's similar for your value. If you feel that you're doing something currently in a job and you're like, what does the Gallup poll say? 68% of people now are not engaged at work. If you're going into work and you're just not feeling it, maybe think about, is there something else that you're really passionate about that aligns with what people need? And so for me, this whole networking, the speaking tour, all of these great opportunities that I've had to really talk and, support others came from just being really passionate about something that I do organically. It had nothing to do with my job title or, what I do for anything. It was just more, this is what I do. And also I want to be able to spotlight and showcase other people within my network in the book that will never talk about themselves and probably won't use the three-step process. So I'm doing it for them as well.
How has the book tour been going in all the conversations you've been having? One, from a networking perspective, but
Yeah.
two, just broadly, I mean, I'm sure this is a little bit foreign to some people with like, you know, I don't have any plans to write a book. Maybe that'll change after
Yep.
this conversation, but
Mhm.
like then having to go and promote it and being in the spotlight.
Yeah, so the weirdest part is when Fox in DC, so Fox 5, contacted me in January. And when I was doing this interview, it was Saturday. It was like a 2-hour advance notice, like kind of like go. And I thought to myself, so we prep people to do this all the time, but it feels a little awkward when you're on the other side. And so I remember as I was speaking, I was thinking in my head, sound bites, short, plug the website, do this, and it's
Uh-huh.
like it became, I mean, it was fun, but I think the more that I did, I ended up doing, a Fox 10 Phoenix. I wrote an article for Fast Company. Forbes is coming out soon. So the more I started to do the podcasts and even speaking tours, I think I started to get more comfortable and recognizing that, well, we're our best when we tell stories and not remembering the three key messages. Those are the old days. We've evolved, taking my own advice and applying it. But it's been great because it's opened me up to your point, a different network of people who I didn't know that I could really be supportive of. So these are organizations. I'm a founding member of Chief in Boston. I've also been speaking to Blend members. So Blend is a cross-functional executive group. And so that's been great. I didn't even know it existed. So to be able to engage with folks has been really exciting. Wells Fargo has recently sponsored me to come out and speak about networking in DC. It's been great. And then even smaller companies, Triumvirate Environmental for Women's History Month had me speak about internal networking and the power of that for women and women leadership. So everyone is seeing a different spin on it. I have a Ben and Jerry's Race Amity event coming up to talk about networking as a form of broadening your horizons with regards to people who don't look like you,
Uh-huh.
and then young professional organizations as well. So the fact that people pre-college, or at least the people who mentor people pre-college are seeing this as something that can help our next generation, that's something I didn't even think of when I was writing this book. So I've just been so blessed with all of the opportunities to help people out there.
Yeah, it sounds like it's quite successful. What's the conversation with the corporations? You mentioned Wells Fargo, but any sponsoring company, like, because when I think about networking instantly, and it goes to what we were saying, it's about like, oh, well, it's when you need a job or you need a reference or something along those lines. But I feel like a company's not going to invest in their employees trying to network to find a new job
Exactly, right?
necessarily. So, like, is there an internal networking conversation that you're having with them and how they can approach that? Or is it just like, walk us through that a little?
Yeah, so Forbes recently found that the skills needed for internal comms, and I would argue any business function, networking is one of the top skills. And so it's been great to see that being acknowledged that, God, think about pre-COVID, how much we needed to socialize things. It was so easy to just walk up to somebody's office or desk and have an organic conversation. Now everything's got to be scheduled, but the internal networking that is needed to even get an idea off the ground or, with a lot of very important pieces of communication, how we need to make sure everyone is aligned and we get the right information around. If you don't know who to go to, or even if you're going to someone and they're not prioritizing you because they don't have a relationship with you, it's really hard to get things done. I always tell people when I was on the agency side, it was all about fast results. When I became internal, results were important, but more important, it was about working together with the cross-functional team and making sure that everyone felt supported and not that comms is off doing their own thing. So that's really important. And I think about chief of staff roles, sales, and others as well. So it's the internal networking that can lead to results that align with business goals. And it also can lead to your own career trajectory and path because, having that sponsor or a mentor who knows you. When I was at Takeda, I had the COO become my sponsor because I worked with him 80% of the time versus my comms head
Makes
who I
sense.
really didn't see. And so it's really important for visibility, especially for women and people of color that historically have not had that visibility. Networking has really been able to help me and my growth as well as others.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the internal networking thing, especially in times of change, I think can be challenging for some people. You got a lot
Right.
of people coming in, people going out, new leaders coming in, existing leaders going out that where the relationships were. How do you think about like building that trusted advisor companionship, if you will, with an executive stakeholder? It could be a comms person, CCO, it could be their business executive. No, it's not always just about the results.
Yeah, trust is important. I was on the hybrid working group at Takeda during COVID, and we looked at a lot of research before we came up with the hybrid model. And it was funny because even now the conversations continue across industry, right? It's, oh, we can do our job virtually. Yes, 100%. Most of what we do can be done virtually, but it's not about what can be done. It's what should be done. And the research is really showing that for trust, about, again, the 65% number keeps coming up, but 65% of people, professionals, really feel like they need to know someone in order to trust them. So it's really hard to do all virtually. And so I think the more that we can encourage hybrid models, or at least just look, if we're all virtual, can we agree to come in the office every other week to just see each other and get to know each other outside of these very stressful times? Because think about it, if the only time you're interacting with somebody is under deadline and pressure, maybe there's a restructuring, that's not going to be the best time to really feel like I know this person, right? And so I feel we're able to give ourselves grace and each other grace and just know each other in a better, I think, more productive way when we have trust built up.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's you kind of nailed it with the idea of getting to know someone. Like one of my main executives is based in a different city, but she has seen my kids on video calls when they interrupt
Awesome.
and
Yeah.
you need that level of grace like you were saying, but like it also lends to the authenticity and the person that's on the other side. Both
Yes.
sides for that matter.
Yeah.
I got to know her a little bit and insights onto her side. She's
Hmm.
understood me a little bit more and it just fuels the relationship, like you said.
Yeah. And this way, when people know you, they could figure out how to help you. So usually when I'm on these one-on-one calls, even with somebody new, I don't end it with, now, how do you think I can help you? Because I
Right.
assume if they knew that, they would ask. So sometimes it's about us listening. One of the chapters is two ears, one mouth, because if we're listening and if we truly feel like, all right, we're starting to understand someone, we might be able to proactively say, I think this might be helpful to you, or contacting my friend might be helpful to you for whatever you need to do, whether that's something personal like home renovations or, physical therapy, as I always talk about since I've always been injured, or something professionally as well.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. So, final question. What you've done all this research, you've talked to a lot of people, you're talking to a lot of people, a lot of companies. What's the one or two things that people get consistently wrong about how they show up professionally? And I don't want you to take the easy way out and it's being transactional.
Right. Yeah, I know, right? Because that's the obvious one, or the time situation. Yeah.
Right.
I think the thing that people get wrong is trying to like force it. It's like, especially on LinkedIn, it's like, I'm going to reach out to this person and we're going to have a conversation this week. And then this is going to happen. That's going to happen. Sometimes we have to let things play out. And sometimes, conversations and relationships we don't know are going to come back around. Like a lot of the clients I'm working with now, one of them in particular, I had posted something about helping on a town hall meeting for my Daiichi client. And this client saw it and said, well, wait a minute, our executive needs help with that too. I hadn't talked with her or really worked with her in 15 years. This was pre Weber. But the fact that we just picked right back up again, we had a great conversation and now I'm, working with her company. That was organic. I didn't say like, oh, let me look through I was going to say Rolodex like we're 1980, but let me look through the LinkedIn here and see who I can get a job from. It's like sometimes let things play out. And I truly believe you're going to be where you should be. If you're just being clear on that value to those right audiences, you'll find your people, right? But be patient. This is not even the three-step process isn't like there's no timing around it because ideally you really should be just thinking about this as an ongoing long-term, relationship with the people in your circle.
Yeah. So, exactly what I take it again. makes total sense based on the process you've outlined. Really, for communicators, it comes down to just apply what we know to ourselves and our own networking desires and
Amen.
our networking goals.
Yeah.
Monique, it was great to have you on. Thanks so much. Good luck with the book. Where can everyone find information about the book, yourself, connect with you offline?
Yes. Yeah. So thanks, Joe. Appreciate being on. Folks can find me at redefiningnetworkingbook.com. A link to my the book is there, the three-step process, as well as the link to my email and LinkedIn. So redefiningnetworkingbook.com. And please let me know, especially how you felt about this episode, what really resonated with you, and would love to, in the spirit of networking, be of support to any of your listeners out there as well as you.
Thanks so much, Monique. And thanks everybody for joining us again on Comms Confidential. We'll catch you next time.